What's up, guys? Hopefully you're doing well, having a good day. It's Sunday again, and yeah, another weekend. So I thought I would do another video today talking about the inghams and talking about what, something I was saying about yesterday. Now, obviously, I think what's angered me more is not that they're addressing hate and that they're ranting about stuff, but more about the fact that they're ranting about stuff and addressing hate in front of the kids. Like, I just don't think they should be doing that. Now, I'm not saying that they're not allowed to address hate or they're not allowed to rant about anything, but, they shouldn't be doing that in front of the kids. Like the other night they was doing, they was ranting and, addressing hate in front of Jason Miller. And obviously Chris was calling people scumbags in front of Jason Miller, and I just thought to myself, like, that was really not on. Like, he shouldn't have been calling people scumbags in front of Jason Miller. Like, they didn't need to hear that. They didn't need to hear them ranting and, and addressing hate. They didn't need to hear Chris, calling people scumbags. They're 3 and 5 years old. They don't need to be hearing that. My viewpoint on it is, is there a reason why they couldn't have gone into another room, to address that or to rant? Why did they have to do that with his, with the two young kids, Jason Miller, in earshot? I do, but I've been thinking about the inghams, do you know what? I do feel sorry for them because, it's just like thinking about some of the things they've had to hear. But if you think about it, right, they probably had to hear a lot of things that they should never have had to hear because Chris and Sarah choose to rant in front of them instead of ranting in a room where the kids are out of earshot and can't actually hear what's being said. It's just so, it can't be that pleasant for them being around Chris and Sarah when they're ranting like that. It's like, what sort of an environment is that for the kids? Being in an environment where, their parents always ranting and addressing hate. That's not a very good environment for them, is it, to be fair? And I was saying this yesterday, I was saying that if they want to rant or, address hate, then they can do that if, that's what they choose to do. They're right within their rights to do that. I'm not saying that I have a problem with them doing that. I'm saying that I have a problem with them doing that in front of the kids because they shouldn't really be doing that in front of the kids. Like, why did Chris think it was acceptable to be calling people scumbags in front of the other kids? There was no need for that. There was no need for him to do that. It was completely and utterly unacceptable. And I really don't know what else to say. I wish there was something else I could say about this, but it doesn't feel like there is. Like, I feel like I've said everything that really needs to say in the 2 videos that I did yesterday. I did do, 2 videos talking about this yesterday, saying that, I really didn't agree with the fact that they rant and address hate in front of the kids, and I just don't think that's a good idea. And I think there's a lot of reasons for why I don't think, that's such a good idea, but, I just feel like they don't need to be hearing that. Like, they don't need to be, kids don't need to be hearing Chris and Sarah ranting and addressing hate. They don't need to be hearing Chris calling people scumbags. Like, kids don't need to be hearing any of that. But the fact they've had to hear that is just, it's just disgusting. Because at the end of the day, and it's inexcusable and unjustifiable. At the end of the day, Jason Miller should not have had to hear that. Obviously they were in the same room at the time because you heard, just before Sarah started properly ranting, she actually said to Jace, she actually was speaking to Jace, so that both Jace and Miller were in the same room. So why were they addressing hate or ranting with with them in earshot? Why were they calling people scumbags in front of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old? You know, I know they might think that's completely acceptable. You know, they might think it's okay to do that. But holding people's scumbags in front of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, probably not a good idea, because kids at that age, you know, have that tendency to repeat a lot of the things they hear. I mean, Chris and Sarah using words like that in front of them, they're basically, you know, there's always that chance they could start repeating words like that. You know, and at the end of the day, Mila and Jace don't need to be repeating words like that. But you can't blame them for repeating words like that when you've got Chris and Sarah saying things like that in front of them. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, you say calling people scumbags. If you're in a room and it hits her out of earshot, that's fine. You know, call people scumbags as much as you want. But when you're hits her in earshot, it's not really appropriate to be calling people scumbags. You know, knowing that they could end up repeating that, and you probably don't want them to be repeating that. You know, it's just shocking. You know, I really did feel sorry for Jason Miller because, not because they had to hear that, but because Sarah dragged Jace into it when she didn't need to. And I said this yesterday as well. I said that I really didn't like the fact that Sarah had dragged Jace into it because it didn't feel like she needed to do that. But that's what they do. You know, they have that tendency to drag their kids into things they don't need to be dragging them into. And this is not just a problem with Sarah and Chris, of course, this is a problem with a lot of these family vloggers. You know, is they do have that tendency to drag their kids into things they don't need to be dragged into. You know, they do have that habit of involving their kids in things that their kids don't need to be involved in. You know, when they're involving their kids in disputes that they don't need to be involved in. You know, it's like, you know, at the end of the day, when your kids are out of earshot, rant and address hate all you want. But when they're in earshot, it's probably not a good idea to be doing that because they shouldn't have to hear that. They shouldn't have to hear their parents ranting and, addressing hate and calling people scumbags. They shouldn't have to hear any of that. But this is probably, at the end of the day, it's sad to think about the fact that kids are obviously so used to that now. You know, they're obviously so used to their parents ranting and addressing hate in front of them. You know, because Chris and Sarah will say, oh, well, the kids weren't that bothered by it. Well, obviously they're not that bothered by it because they're so used to it and they shouldn't be so used to it, you know? It's like, at the end of the day, there's nothing right or acceptable about, addressing hate in front of kids or ranting in front of kids or calling people scumbags in front of kids. You know, I don't think any decent parent would think that it was appropriate to do that. I think most decent parents would go into another room. They wouldn't be standing there, they wouldn't be sitting there ranting and addressing hate in front of their kids. But obviously Chris and Sarah have no shame whatsoever about doing things like that. They have no shame about ranting and addressing hate in front of their kids. They have no shame about, have no shame in calling people scumbags in front of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old who don't need to be hearing that. It is completely and utterly unacceptable. There is no defending them on that. You know, they should not have been calling people scumbags in front of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old kid, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old who could very easily repeat that. You know, they're literally asking for that to happen. You know, they've said they say so much stuff. In fact, this is the thing, like, this is what I don't like. You know, is they talk about a lot of things in front of their kids that they probably shouldn't be. You know, there's no denying the fact that they shouldn't be ranting or addressing hate in front of their kids. You know, I have no problem with them as I said, I have no problem with them wanting to do that. But them doing that in front of the kids that's when I start taking an issue with it. That's when it starts to anger me because there's no reason to be ranting or addressing hate in front of the kids. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever. And if people are actually willing to condone the fact that they do that, that actually makes things even worse, because nobody should even be condoning that. Nobody should even be condoning the fact that they do things like that, because it's just wrong on so many levels. And to be honest with you, I don't feel bad about saying that, because it's actually true. It is wrong on so many levels. And you have to draw the line, that someone has to say it for what it is. It is absolutely ridiculous. If I was a parent, would I rant and address hate in front of my kids? No, I would not. Would I be calling people scumbags in front of my kids? No, I would not, because I wouldn't want them to hear that. I wouldn't feel, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my kids having to hear that. It must make the kids feel so uncomfortable when they have to hear things like that. No child should have to hear that. No child should have to hear their parents ranting and addressing hate and calling people scumbags in front of them. It's just not on. There's no need for it at the end of the day. I'm not saying they're not allowed to do. They're not allowed to do it at all. But just don't be doing it in front of the kids. Do it in a room where the kids are not in earshot. Then when you're in a room where the kids are not in earshot, you can call people whatever you want, whether that be scumbags or whatever. But when your kids are in that same room and are in earshot, they should not be using language like that. They should not. At the end of the day, it's not appropriate to be using language like that in front of young kids. And I know they might think it is, but in reality, it isn't. To me, it's not appropriate to be ranting or addressing hate in front of young kids, or calling people scumbags in front of young kids, or kids in general. To be honest. Regardless of how old they are, they should not have to hear that. They should not have to, and it's just, as I said, it's a sad thing to think about with it's the reality of the fact that they've obviously had to hear a lot of things they should never have had to hear. It's as simple as that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway, and I'll see you for another video soon. Bye bye.